Welcome to the History AI podcast, where the past comes alive with facts, anecdotes, and a dash of humor. Here are your hosts, Chuck and Marco.
Welcome back to the History AI podcast. I'm Chuck.
And I'm Marco. Today, we're diving deep into an often overlooked but crucial Civil War battle, the Battle of Monocacy.
That's right, Marco. This battle, sometimes called the battle that saved Washington, was a pivotal moment in American history. Let's set the scene for our listeners.
The year is 1864. America is in the throes of the Civil War, a conflict that has divided the nation and taken countless lives. In the East, the Union and Confederate armies are locked in a grueling stalemate.
The Confederacy, under General Robert E. Lee, is desperately seeking a way to turn the tide of the war. Despite significant victories, they are increasingly constrained by limited resources and mounting Union pressure.
Meanwhile, in the Union, President Abraham Lincoln faces his own challenges. The prolonged war has led to war weariness and criticism among the Northern public. The upcoming presidential election looms, and Lincoln's re-election is far from certain.
It's in this context that Confederate General Jubal Early sees an opportunity. He conceives a bold plan to launch an offensive into the North, aiming to divert Union forces from the siege of Petersburg, which is key to the defense of Richmond, the Confederate capital.
Early's army moves quickly through the Shenandoah Valley, crossing into Maryland. His target, Washington, D.C. The Confederate hope is that a threat to the Union capital would force Grant to weaken his grip on Petersburg.
But standing between Early and Washington is the Monocacy River near Frederick, Maryland. Here, a small, hastily assembled Union force under Major General Lew Wallace prepares to confront the Confederate advance.
The stage is set for a confrontation that, while often overshadowed by larger battles like Gettysburg or Antietam, will play a critical role in the unfolding drama of the Civil War.
This is the backdrop to the Battle of Monocacy, a clash that, though little known, had far-reaching implications for the war and the nation's future. As summer 1864 approached, General Robert E. Lee's Confederate forces were entrenched in a brutal siege at Petersburg, Virginia. The siege was crucial. Holding Petersburg meant protecting Richmond, the Confederate capital.
Meanwhile, General Ulysses S. Grant's Union forces were exerting immense pressure on Lee. The Confederacy was getting stretched thin, both in resources and manpower.
It was in this dire situation that General Jubal Early, one of Lee's most trusted commanders, was tasked with a daring mission. Lee's orders to Early were clear: move northward, create havoc, and draw Union forces away from Petersburg.
Early embraced this mission with zeal. He gathered about 15,000 men and marched into the Shenandoah Valley. This valley, known as the breadbasket of the Confederacy, was a strategic and resource-rich area.
Early's march was rapid and aggressive. His forces swept through the valley, crossed the Potomac River, and entered Maryland. This move caught the Union by surprise. The threat to Washington, D.C., suddenly became very real.
The Union, though caught off guard, reacted quickly. Major General Lew Wallace, known more for his later literary achievements than his military prowess, was the nearest Union commander with available forces.
Wallace, despite having a smaller and less experienced force, understood the gravity of the situation. He knew he couldn't stop Early's army, but he could delay it. Wallace's decision to make a stand at Monocacy was strategic. He aimed to buy time for the defense of Washington.
So, with a mix of regular troops, militia, and hastily mustered volunteers, Wallace prepared to confront early seasoned Confederate veterans. The stage was set for what would become a crucial, though often overlooked, moment in the Civil War narrative.
On the morning of July 9, 1864, the stage was set for a confrontation that would prove to be more significant than anyone could have anticipated. The rolling fields and crossings of the Monocacy River near Frederick, Maryland, would become the unlikely backdrop for a crucial moment in the Civil War.
General Jubal Early's Confederate force, numbering around 15,000, was a mix of infantry, cavalry, and artillery. They were seasoned, battle-hardened, and confident, having marched swiftly through the Shenandoah Valley into Maryland.
Opposing them was Major General Lew Wallace's Union force. Wallace, better known for his future literary career, had roughly 6,000 men. This force was an eclectic mix of 8th-month veterans, 100 Days men who were troops enlisted for a short duration, and local militia.
The battle began early in the morning. The Confederates initiated their assault on the Union positions near the Monocacy River. Their primary objective was to cross the river and break through Wallace's lines.
Wallace, understanding his disadvantage in numbers, had positioned his troops strategically. He utilized the natural defensive advantages offered by the river and the rugged terrain. His plan was to delay the Confederates as long as possible.
The first major clash occurred at the river crossing near the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad Bridge. Confederate artillery pounded the Union defenders as infantry attempted to cross the river under heavy fire.
Despite being outnumbered, the Union forces held their ground for several hours. They inflicted significant casualties on the attacking Confederates. However, Early's numbers and tactical maneuvering eventually began to tell.
By afternoon, the Confederates managed to flank the Union positions. They found a fordable part of the river downstream and began crossing in force. This move put immense pressure on Wallace's right flank.
Wallace, realizing the vulnerability of his position, ordered a strategic retreat. His troops fell back towards Baltimore, but not in disarray. It was a fighting retreat, designed to continue delaying Early's advance.
As night fell, the battle wound down. The Union forces had withdrawn, leaving Early the field, but at a cost. The Confederates had been delayed crucially, giving the Union time to reinforce the defenses around Washington, D.C.
The Battle of Monocacy, though a tactical defeat for the Union, achieved its strategic objective. Wallace's stand, often overlooked in the grand narrative of the Civil War, had indeed been a key moment in the defense of the Union capital. Amidst the turmoil and violence of the Battle of Monocacy, several tales of individual heroism and sacrifice emerged, stories that exemplify the courage and resilience of those who fought.
One such story is that of Private John M. Ticknor of the 10th Vermont Infantry. Despite being severely wounded in the early stages of the battle, Ticknor refused to leave his post. He continued to load and fire his musket with one hand, demonstrating extraordinary bravery under fire.
Another remarkable figure was Lieutenant George Davis of the 151st Ohio National Guard. Davis, who led a small group of soldiers, executed a daring counterattack against a much larger Confederate force. His actions, under intense enemy fire, helped to slow the Confederate advance at a critical moment.
Then there was the heroic stand of Captain Charles E. Randall and his company from the 1st Vermont Heavy Artillery. Tasked with defending the critical Thomas Farm, Randall and his men held their ground against overwhelming odds, inflicting significant casualties on the attacking Confederates.
Not to forget, Sergeant Charles H. McConnell of the 138th Pennsylvania Infantry. McConnell, realizing the importance of communication, repeatedly risked his life running messages through heavy fire. His efforts ensured crucial coordination among the scattered Union forces.
And there's the story of Dr. James F. Hart, a Union surgeon. Amidst the chaos, Dr. Hart set up an impromptu field hospital under fire, tirelessly tending to the wounded of both sides. His dedication to his medical duty in the face of danger was a testament to the humanity that persisted even in the darkest times of war.
These stories, and countless untold ones, highlight the extraordinary acts of bravery that define the Battle of Monocacy. Each of these individuals in their own way, contributed to the greater cause and demonstrated the profound courage and commitment of those who took part in this pivotal moment of the Civil War. The Battle of Monocacy is a fascinating study in military tactics and their broader strategic impact. Despite being outnumbered and outgunned, the Union forces under Major General Lew Wallace implemented a series of tactical maneuvers that had significant strategic consequences.
Wallace's primary tactic was to utilize the natural defensive features of the Monocacy River and the surrounding terrain. He positioned his forces to maximize the defensive benefits of these natural barriers, creating choke points that complicated the Confederate advance.
The Union troops also made strategic use of the railroads and telegraph lines in the area. The Baltimore and Ohio Railroad, which ran parallel to the river, was crucial for Union communications and troop movements. This allowed Wallace to effectively manage his limited resources and coordinate his defensive efforts.
On the Confederate side, General Jubal Early employed aggressive assault tactics. His forces launched frontal attacks across the river, but they also executed flanking maneuvers to try and encircle Wallace's troops. Early's aim was to quickly break through the Union defenses and continue his march toward Washington, D.C.
Despite Early's numerical superiority, the Union's defensive positions and determined resistance significantly slowed the Confederate advance. This delay was the critical impact of the battle. Although the Union forces eventually had to retreat, they succeeded in holding Early's army at bay for an entire day.
This delay was tactically costly for Early. It allowed General Ulysses S. Grant to reinforce the defenses around Washington, D.C. By the time Early reached the outskirts of the capital, he found it too well defended to assault.
The impact of this battle on the broader context of the Civil War cannot be overstated. The Union's successful defense of Washington, D.C., maintained the morale of the North and preserved the political and military stability of the Union.
In addition, the Battle of Monocacy is a textbook example of how a smaller, well-positioned force can employ defensive tactics to achieve a strategic victory, despite losing the battle on the field. It's a clear illustration of the principle that not all victories are determined by the number of troops or the control of the battlefield.
The Battle of Monocacy was not only a tactical and strategic encounter but also a human one, marked by significant loss and suffering. The cost in terms of casualties was substantial for both sides.
On the Union side, the toll was heavy. Out of approximately 6,000 engaged, they suffered around 1,300 casualties, including those killed, wounded, and missing. This was a significant number, given the size of the force and the battle's duration.
The Confederate forces, while victorious on the field, also suffered. They incurred about 700 to 900 casualties. For General Early's army, already stretched thin, these losses were non-trivial and had implications for their subsequent operations.
The aftermath of the battle had far-reaching implications. For Major General Lew Wallace, the battle was a redemption of sorts. Previously criticized for his role at the Battle of Shiloh, his leadership at Monocacy helped to restore his reputation.
For General Jubal Early and the Confederacy, the battle was a Pyrrhic victory. Although they had won at Monocacy, the delay cost them their chance to threaten Washington effectively. By the time Early reached the outskirts of the capital, Union reinforcements had fortified the city's defenses.
Politically, the battle had implications for President Abraham Lincoln's administration. The successful defense of Washington, even after the scare of Monocacy, bolstered Northern morale. It demonstrated the Union's resilience and capability, factors that were crucial in the 1864 presidential election.
In the broader narrative of the Civil War, the Battle of Monocacy is often seen as a turning point. It marked the last significant Confederate advance into Union territory. After this, the momentum shifted increasingly in favor of the Union.
The battle also underscored the strategic importance of logistical elements like railroads and telegraph lines, which played a crucial role in the Union's war effort. The efficient use of these assets by Union forces at Monocacy set a precedent for modern military logistics.
In the end, the Battle of Monocacy stands as a testament to the complexity of war. It highlights how tactical engagements, no matter how small or brief, can have significant strategic outcomes that shape the course of larger conflicts. The Battle of Monocacy, though not as renowned as other Civil War battles, left a lasting impact on military strategy, American history, and the collective memory of the nation.
Strategically, the battle underscored the significance of what military historians call defensive delay tactics. Wallace's actions demonstrated how a smaller force, by using the terrain and fortifications effectively, could impede a larger army's progress. This concept would influence military tactics in subsequent conflicts.
The battle also highlighted the importance of logistical infrastructure in warfare. The role of the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad and the telegraph lines in the Union's defense strategy at Monocacy was a precursor to the modern understanding of logistics as a critical element in military planning.
From a historical perspective, the Battle of Monocacy played a crucial role in the 1864 presidential election. The defense of Washington, D.C., following the battle, boosted Northern morale and public support for Abraham Lincoln, contributing to his re-election. This, in turn, ensured the continuation of Lincoln's policies, which included the decisive push towards Union victory.
On a broader scale, the battle is a reflection of the human cost of the Civil War. The casualties and the bravery displayed by both Union and Confederate soldiers serve as a poignant reminder of the sacrifices made during the conflict. It's a part of the collective memory that shapes the American understanding of the Civil War's legacy.
Monocacy also contributed to the evolution of the National Park Service's role in preserving Civil War battlefields. The Monocacy National Battlefield stands today not just as a historical site, but as a place of education and reflection, teaching future generations about the complexities and the human aspects of the Civil War.
In terms of military history, the battle is a case study in how seemingly minor actions can have major strategic consequences. The battle that saved Washington serves as a powerful example of how individual leadership, soldiers' bravery, and tactical decisions can influence the course of history.
Lastly, the battle's legacy lives on in the numerous personal stories of courage and sacrifice. These stories continue to resonate, offering insights into the individual experiences of those who fought, and providing a human face to the often abstract discussions of military strategy and historical impact.
The Battle of Monocacy, in all these ways, left an indelible mark on American history. It's a compelling chapter in the story of the Civil War, reminding us of the intricate tapestry of events that shaped the nation's destiny.
As we wrap up, we want to thank our listeners for joining us on this journey through history.
Don't forget to subscribe, share, and please give the History AI podcast a 5-star review. And if you have a topic you're passionate about, let us know on social media.
Until next time, I'm Marco.
And I'm Chuck. Thanks for listening, and keep exploring history. Step into the thrilling world of sports betting with The Starting Line, an introduction to sports betting. Whether you're a beginner or simply curious, this comprehensive guide takes you from the basics to the advanced. Learn to decode odds, develop winning strategies, and bet responsibly. Get your copy now and transform every game into an adventure. The Starting Line is your first step towards mastering the art of sports betting. Available on Amazon.